All right, we are live on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. I'm June Bea, CEO of Bea Group, and I wanted to welcome you all to our deep dive live stream. It is the third one we've done today. This one is CRISPR, which is genetic technology, which our professional lead, Michael Friend, has been leading. So this is a 6-week paid internship that we have been collaborating with the Downey Unified School District for now 6 years in this internship program. And I wanted to just welcome you all here. This is our first year live streaming. This is our second year doing a virtual internship. And I wanted to acknowledge board member Nancy Swenson. I'm going to give her the floor to welcome you all for being here. So Nancy, please take it away.
Yeah, sure. No. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a quick thank you. We couldn't do this without the Bea Group and everybody here supporting the students. I'm so glad we are able to do it again. Even, last year was a new thing with COVID, and this year I'm glad we were able to do it again because it's so helpful for all the students. And I know we increase every year how many interns we get to support. So I just want to thank everybody here today from the Bea Group and Kevin Davies, and I'm ready to learn about CRISPR.
Awesome, thank you. We also have John Harris here. John, this is our contact, and John and I have been working closely for a number of years. John, are you in a position to say hello to everyone?
I am.
Great.
I am. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much. Michael, thank you so much for leading this group and shepherding our students through this last 6 weeks. Really looking forward to hearing more about CRISPR and understanding exactly the student learnings as a result of participating in this group. Nancy, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your support and the support that we get from the executive cabinet.
Awesome. So I'm going to just acknowledge that we were able to do this because of some grant funding from both the California Department of Education as well as the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And so our interns are, they're going to be rising seniors from the Downey Unified School District. And again, they've been working closely with Michael Friend, who I will introduce right now. So Michael, if you want to just say a little bit about who you are and what the interns did, and then we'll turn it over to the interns to share, as well as a short, just some words from our industry professional, Kevin Davies.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much, June, and thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm Michael Friend, the founder and CEO of the Minority Coalition for Precision Medicine. And our focus around CRISPR Deep Dive has been really built around the film Human Nature, which aired on Netflix. And I can just say from a personal standpoint, it's been very emotional for me, given the fact that my business partner, Shakir Cannon, was working with us. It was supposed to be in the film as a sickle cell patient, but he passed away just before the filming. And so it's been very emotional, but I can tell you from these students and these interns, looking at the political, the social, and the ethical and the commercial implications of CRISPR, they really expounded on it very well. And you're going to hear that today. And so thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing your presentations with all of you. Thank you again, Drew, and everyone.
Great. Without further ado, I'm not sure who's first of our interns sharing. Is it Joseph?
I gotta go first.
Okay, Joseph, here we go. Should I bring up the slides?
Yes.
Great. Let me do that. I am ready, and here we go. All right, go for it.
Okay, hi. My name is Joseph Gallegos. I'm a student at Warren High School for DUSD. And the internship I went in is CRISPR Deep Dives. Next slide. The things I've learned during this deep dive is I was in a group with the graphic team, and we helped Michael to make this study guide for the Human Nature film. The study guide had discussion, had reviews, questions for students in high school that we want to give out information so they can learn more about CRISPR. Because I believe that in high school we didn't really learn that much about gene editing. Maybe just like 2-3 days, but I feel like we should learn a week about it. Next slide. So things that I got from this deep dive is the future of CRISPR technology. The CRISPR babies, is it safe or dangerous? Coming together as a group to share ideas. The political viewpoints of the nationwide or worldwide to see if law standards that we need to have for this future, because we don't know yet, since it's still new, we don't know if it's gonna be safe or not. Next slide. Even though there's some benefits, like people could take away genetic disorders like sickle cell disease, more stuff like that. Those are benefits that they could have, but some things that we're scared of are people doing it to themselves, because doing it to themselves and babies. People are doing, people might be able to do like changing heights, facial features. I agree with those stuff, but I feel like it won't really be your baby. So, and I feel like it could lead to bad things, maybe war stuff like coming into it, making tall people. If we're gonna make standards too, also, I feel like we should not only make it nationwide, but worldwide, because people could just move on to a different state to just get this hands-on technology. Because right now, I feel like the technology, it's easy to get your hands on. It's expensive. That's the only thing. But also, professionals should only be having it. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. And then Sarah.
Let me just share my screen really quickly. I don't know if you guys are able to see that. Well, my name is Sarah Urrutia, and I'm also an intern at NextGen CRISPR. A brief description about me is I'm a proactive student attending Warren High School, and I'm on Warren's swim team and water polo team. I'm interested in genetics as well as becoming a dermatologist in the future. And I hope that this deep dive, I'm glad that this deep dive made me more interested in genetics and more excited to become a dermatologist. So my experience with the internship was very well. I'm very grateful to be given the opportunity to gain experience and knowledge to help me prepare to enter the workforce. I felt like I didn't really have any experience with even creating like a draft for a resume or a cover letter. So I'm really glad that Work Wonder helped me, as well as creating a LinkedIn profile and just creating a more professional online profile, which will definitely benefit me in the future entering the workforce. And it overall gave me exceptional professional experience and just overall confidence. So during my first week, I learned about CRISPR technology and I was completely amazed. We saw the film Human Nature and it really changed my perspective on a lot of things I just would have never considered. My freshman year, I had taken a year actually, of biomedical science. We had talked about gene editing, but never really in depth. And I really feel that CRISPR, as well as other forms of gene editing, could really, really help people in need. For example, My uncle had sadly passed away recently from cancer, and I feel that CRISPR could have definitely been one of the technologies to help him. And I just feel like this could really help a lot of people. So this has definitely motivated me to, in the future, talk about CRISPR technology with other people, bring it up, because this is genuinely a groundbreaking technology that more people should be aware of. And I'm just going to show a quick informative video that I created on CRISPR. Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm with Next Gen CRISPR Project. Today we'll be talking about CRISPR and its commercial implications. CRISPR stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. CRISPR allows scientists to edit the genes in living organisms, a relatively simple procedure that could be used to edit genes out of existence. This technology will play a huge role in the future. In fact, they're playing a role now that's becoming larger and more important. With genetic modification, the possibilities are endless. However, the discussion surrounding the cost of CRISPR greatly varies. It can cost as little as $65 for each treatment kit, whereas Novartis, a global healthcare company, priced their gene therapy for $2 million for each treatment. This is all set to change in the near future. With the increase of general knowledge and popularity of CRISPR, we can all take part in the process of controlling how CRISPR is offered to the public, which is why it is important for all of us to be a part of the discussion moving forward. Your voices deserve to be heard. Please support by liking, sharing, and subscribing. So a personal statement I had created on the social implications of CRISPR is that CRISPR is a groundbreaking technology that can make a huge impact on society and individuals in need of the technology. And our government should try and fund CRISPR technology or its research so it can be available to people with lower income or no access to healthcare. Projects that I worked on during my internship with CRISPR was a study guide that we worked on to hopefully spread it to public schools. I was on Team California. So our goal was to help spread more information and educate people on CRISPR and hopefully add that to public schools curriculums in the state of not only California, but New York. And again, I was on Team California with my coworker, David. I was also part of the social media team. I had worked on TikTok and YouTube, as well as helping everyone else on the social media team edit things or give them insight or input. And I also worked on my own video and editing, which I had never done. So it was a nice experience to work on, and I learned a few new things. So that was really interesting. And big takeaways from this internship is definitely laws to protect CRISPR. Again, like my coworker had mentioned earlier, the designer babies is like a big concern for those who have taken the time to research gene editing and gene technology. Designer babies is a big concern, mainly because people feel that we could create what is called superhumans. And I feel that this is a big reason why we should talk more about CRISPR technology and maybe get it talked about with our government so that there can be laws protecting CRISPR and other forms of gene editing so it's not taken into the wrong hands, as well as create more government funding for this. As well
Oh no, we lost some sound, Sarah.
Christians as well as for Muslims. So Michael, as well as human nature, opened my eyes on all of these things and things that I probably would have never looked into myself. So thank you so much for this opportunity and for allowing me to be a part of not only Work Wonder, but with CRISPR. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. I don't know if others lost sound earlier. No? Yes? Would you maybe repeat the last maybe minute of what you shared? Because some of us couldn't hear the last part of what you just said. So Sarah, would you mind just kind of repeating
Just
that?
before Christians and Muslims.
Yes, right before that.
So I was discussing how Michael, since I was a part of the social implications for CRISPR, Michael did discuss how for many people of religious backgrounds, such as like Christians and Muslims, this was a big concern to them, especially with the designer babies. They thought that it was modifying what God had created in their religions, and they felt that it was something that just should not be done. So Michael really allowed us to have those kinds of conversations, because I feel like if we don't have those kinds of conversations, we won't be able to educate people on this subject and be able to really just spark a conversation, as well as lead this possibly to our government so that they can create laws to help protect CRISPR and other forms of gene editing to fall into the wrong hands. So I just want to thank Michael, and I want to thank Work Wonder and June for giving me this great opportunity to work in this internship program. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Joseph. So Michael, do you want to introduce our special guest before we do Q&A?
Absolutely. Well, Kevin Davies, I don't want to do too much, but I could tell you this much. Kevin was very instrumental in helping to tell Shakir Cannon's story in his journal, his magazine, and was I believe one of the first stories. So Kevin is very influential in the CRISPR space. He's an author, has several great books out. Hope we can get our hands on some of those. But Kevin, thank you. But we'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
I'm thrilled to get the last minute invitation to join this presentation, but I love what I've seen so far and looking forward to the rest of the program. And if you've got 5 minutes, I'll show a couple of slides of my own and we can give you my sense of where CRISPR is, which actually touches on a lot of the points that have already been made. I'm so glad that you've been watching Human Nature, which is such a fantastic film, and one that I borrowed from quite a bit in this book, Editing Humanity, which came out last year, just out now in paperback. And for any of the interns who are part of your program, Michael, if I can get their addresses, I'd be very happy to send them a copy. My gift for people being so smart and taking an interest in this subject. So I'd love to do that. I've got a whole stack of them over there, so I'm not going to any trouble. I don't have to walk to the post office. So that would give me a big thrill. I got to know Michael a little bit about 4 years ago when we launched the CRISPR Journal. CRISPR was getting so exciting that I felt we had to launch a proper scientific journal devoted purely to this subject. And at the time, I thought, well, if I'm going to travel around the world and meet all the scientists doing all this incredible, cool stuff, well, I may as well write a book about it. There's surely going to be enough material there. And sure enough, there was. So I've just got a couple of slides that I'd love to show you. If I can get this to work, let's see. Here we go. So, of course, we're talking about CRISPR months after it actually won the Nobel Prize, which is incredibly exciting. And I'm sure you recognize these two scientists, Jennifer Doudna on the left, who is celebrating with Emmanuel Charpentier, a French microbiologist who works in Berlin. And this is happening 8 years after their breakthrough paper that really described how we turn CRISPR, this weird bacterial antiviral immune system, into a genetic scissors that we can program and use to target any DNA in virtually any organism. Because of COVID, they couldn't have the usual big gala in Stockholm, so Charpentier received her Nobel medal at the Swedish Embassy in Berlin. And Jennifer received hers in her back garden in Berkeley, which is a first that hopefully will never be equaled. You've all, I think, been studying the basics of CRISPR and its sort of origins as this bacterial immune system, so we won't belabor that. And in my book, Editing Humanity, the CRISPR Revolution and the New Era of Genome Editing, I tell many stories from the scientists that really paved the way for the discovery of what we now call CRISPR and CRISPR gene editing, such as this delightful Spanish microbiologist, Francisco Mojica, who is studying the microorganisms that live in these incredibly high salt-rich lagoons off the Mediterranean in southeast Spain. And he felt that trying to understand CRISPR must be the key to understanding how these organisms can live in such salty environments. It was a lovely theory. It was totally wrong, but it led to the discovery by Mojica and others of what the CRISPR repeats actually, the function that they actually have to store these viral signatures that are then used to arm the Cas enzyme that goes and then cleaves and destroys viruses when they subsequently try to invade bacteria. And this, if you haven't seen this lovely video from a Japanese team, this is CRISPR in action. This is the Cas9 enzyme cutting a strand of DNA. Amazing how these scientists are able to film it. But that still gives me goosebumps years after I first saw it. The first sort of demonstration of CRISPR actually doing its action there as a genetic scissors. Well, one of the reasons we're here, of course, is because CRISPR has such immense potential to treat genetic diseases. And there are literally thousands upon thousands of rare genetic diseases, and some of them are not so rare. And the most exciting and impressive study to date is a small study run by a company in the Boston area called CRISPR Therapeutics, which is being run to treat sickle cell disease and related blood disorders. And the first patient to enroll in this trial is a woman named Victoria Gray, who's been profiled in a long-running radio series on National Public Radio. And I jokingly refer to Victoria as Queen Victoria, because I hope she becomes that famous. She deserves to. She's been treated now. It was 18 months ago that she received her treatment, actually close to 2 years ago now. And the treatment has been a spectacular success. And it really gives not just sickle cell patients, but really patients with many genetic diseases, tremendous hope that CRISPR can indeed be a one and done cure, or at least a very successful treatment for many terrible genetic disorders like sickle cell and blindness and liver diseases and muscle diseases and brain diseases. And it's a very, very long list. There are now many companies worth many billions of dollars who are working on these clinical trials. So I think it was Sarah talked about funding. There is lots of funding for CRISPR gene editing research, and there's lots of commercial excitement. Indeed, for the last month or so, about 3 companies have just gone public in an effort to commercialize CRISPR to tackle various diseases. You've also talked about the ethical concerns, and I had a front row seat when this Chinese scientist, He Jiankui, presented his data on the first edited so-called CRISPR babies. It was an event that drew an extraordinary lineup of press and photographers. I mean, it was more like a rock concert or a sporting event than a scientific conference. And the feeling in the room was, how could he have done this? As one of the leading Chinese bioethicists said, how could he change the gene pool of the human species by modifying the DNA of human embryos without considering the need to consult other members of the human species? He had done this in complete secrecy. Thankfully, there have been many discussions since this all happened. And I think there are good rules and regulations in place that this is very unlikely to happen again. And if it did, it would happen in a much more responsible format for a reason that had been, for a purpose that had been approved by various national and international regulatory bodies. In closing, CRISPR is maybe not the last word in gene editing. There are new and improved versions of CRISPR coming along, including a couple of technologies invented in the lab of this brilliant chemistry professor at Harvard, David Liu. One's called base editing, and an even more recent technology is called prime editing. Both of these technologies have companies pushing them as far and as fast as they can responsibly go. And so I think it's an amazingly exciting time. David's group has published very promising preclinical work, not just on sickle cell disease, curing sickle cell disease in mice, using a different method, a different approach to the one that has worked so well in Victoria Gray, but also for this rare disease, a genetic disorder, which is a form of premature aging. So it's an amazingly exciting time. I had a blast, telling these stories of the pioneers, the patients, the promise, and some of the perils around genome editing. And I really poured it all into this book, Editing Humanity. And so I hope you will use it in further research along with that great film, Human Nature, which is in fact my last slide in this mini little presentation, because I like this film so much. So thank you so much for giving me this little time to give my little spiel. And as I say, for all the interns, give me your name, send me your name and address, and I'd love to get a copy of the book, signed, of course, off to you in the coming weeks.
Thanks so much, Kevin. That's amazing. And we will definitely get you the addresses of our interns. So
great.
We'll figure out how to do that. Michael, do you have any words you'd like to share before we open up for question and answers?
Yes, absolutely. Kevin, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for gifting our young people with your book. And hopefully it's something that we can add to our discussions in the near future. I just want to say that what was shocking to me, and probably shouldn't have, but the students' take on the technology, and I think if there's anything we can do is allow these young people to lead these discussions in such a way that we've never seen before. Because this technology, and as one of the parents said, that the technology, it's really going to impact them and their generation. And so I'm hoping that, from what we've started to be able to really move these conversations forward and allow these conversations to take place, led by students, I would say, as we've seen thus far.
It's a great point. And there are conferences and events like a CRISPRCon, of course, which you know well, where Shakir made his debut a few years ago at Berkeley. That's still going, becoming more and more international. I know next spring in London will be the third installment in the Genome Editing Ethics Conference series. Of course, it won't, hopefully it will not live up to what happened in Hong Kong, which was extraordinary with a capital E. I'm hoping for something a little bit more sedate and uncontroversial in 6 months or 9 months' time. But having the voices of the public, and particularly young, engaged activists and scientists and patient advocates, is incredibly important because this technology affects all of us. I agree.
Thank you, Kevin. I just wanted to add, yeah, CRISPR-Con Keystone is on board, part of the Next Gen project, and so they're in full support. So we will see our young people on these platforms.
Yes. Are there questions for the interns?
I have one. I would like to ask each of you, how much did you know about CRISPR before? If you could just tell me more about that. How much did you know about CRISPR before you did this deep dive? And what did you know about it before?
I didn't know anything about CRISPR. The only thing I learned about was in biomed in freshman year. It was like 3 days only. But after that, I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah, as well for me, I took biomedical science my freshman year of high school as well. And my teacher had just briefly discussed gene editing, but not CRISPR technology specifically. It just wasn't really a big conversation. It was just, we were going over genetics in general, and she had mentioned that people were doing gene editing, but she didn't really go into it.
Well, I agree with what I think it was Joseph said. You know, right now it's 2 days in a year-long syllabus. Hopefully soon it'll be a week, and then it'll take more and more time. I mean, hopefully teachers want to teach what's exciting and capturing the imagination of their students. And you know, human nature is such a great place to start because it's so well told, but it doesn't dumb anything down too much, but it brings you along. So it's a fantastic way to get people engaged, and it seems to have, you know, certainly triggered some real interest in the folks we've heard from today.
Well,
Yeah.
piggybacking on that, so now that you do know more, right? So Joseph and Sarah, what will you do now with this new knowledge that you have?
I'm gonna look more into it. Maybe start learning more classes, clubs, in college when I get in college. Because it definitely is interesting.
I found this extremely interesting as well, and I would definitely want to help educate people on this technology in the future, because I genuinely feel like it would benefit society as a whole.
Sarah, can we talk? You made a very interesting point. It was either in your video or before about pricing, and I think that's something worth talking about, because you're right. CRISPR, the reason we're all talking about CRISPR, which 8 years ago was just another science article in a science journal, is because it's so affordable and it's such a powerful technology, and yet it's spread around the world because you don't need fancy equipment or $1 million machines. You know, you just need a couple of kits and to be able to order some reagents, you know, from almost like ordering a book on Amazon. And you quoted $65 for a kit or something, and I don't dispute that. So it's, for a high school student even, it's very easy to do your first elementary CRISPR experiment. But then you made a very interesting juxtaposition when you said that Novartis charges $2 million for their world record setting gene therapy drug, which is called Zolgensma. And it's a little misleading to put those two together. So you have to, I guess, you know, from the company's point of view, we don't get drugs unless big pharma companies and biotech companies are investing huge amounts of money and resources and time into finding these therapies. There's a standard maxim in the field that says it takes 10 years and $1 or $2 billion on average to get a drug through all of the trials and to get one drug approved, because the success in getting that drug or therapy approved also has to make up for all the drugs that failed at some point along the way. You don't get any money for those you've invested a ton in. So it's a difficult equation. And when the therapy is eventually ready, and hopefully in a few years these will be CRISPR-based gene editing therapies, then the company that developed it and sponsored the trials has got a typical balancing act. It wants to make them affordable so as many patients as possible can get access to them, but it also needs to reward its investors and its shareholders, and those two things are not really in alignment. And they want to charge a high enough return that they can then invest some of that money. It's not just to pay themselves, I mean, they do that quite well, but it's also to invest some of that money in the next round of research and the next generation of drug, because that first gene editing drug is probably not going to be as pinpoint accurate or as super effective as they would like it to be. So it's a very, this applies not just for gene editing, but for all drugs. And it's a problem in all countries, not just the United States. But I think you've alluded to it, and I think Michael is acutely aware of this as well, that for treating a disease like sickle cell disease, we have a problem, because as wonderful as it is to see the early success in these clinical trials for gene editing and for other drugs that are being on the market now, the price is way higher than most people with this particular disease can afford. And that's just in the United States. To try to get these therapies over to Africa, where sickle cell disease is most common, it's a non-starter. So you talked about the government funding more research into this, and there was a story last year, I think, that the NIH is putting money together with the Gates Foundation to try to take some of these early, most promising therapies and figure out a way, how can we sort of, I don't know, streamline them or package them in a different way such that they can be potentially administered to patients in Africa. It may not be the deluxe version that somebody could buy in America, but it'll get the job done. So people are very aware of these issues, and we hope for progress in getting this price down. But it's going to be a challenge. Every new administration that arrives in this country, I'm not from this country, as you can tell, but every new administration that comes in says we must do something about drug pricing, and then nothing ever happens. So discuss.
I also wanted to point out that for all of the deep dives, we've had co-designer interns who are Bayer Group staff who have been very instrumental in a lot of the logistics and the reminders for our interns. And I wanted to do a shout out to our co-designer intern, Emma Mineta. And Emma, I want to just ask you, what did you know about CRISPR beforehand, and what did you get out of participating as co-designer intern for this?
So, hi, my name is Emma Mineta, and as June mentioned, I am a co-designer at Bayer Group. I did participate in this internship last year, so it was a really nice opportunity to come back as a co-designer, because now I have another perspective of this internship that I wouldn't have had before. And before this, with gene editing, I've always been interested in it. My mom has cancer, and in high school, it was just always an interesting conversation when it did come up. Not necessarily in the classroom, more outside of it. So it was great, because it wasn't until the summer that I really got to dive into these discussions. Even Michael and I, as we were participating in the discussions, we got to see the interns grow, not just as leaders, but also their professionalism. We got to see that improve so much, even in the emails. They started using more professional language. They're much more clear and concise. So it was just an all moment for me. And yeah, so that's what I got out of it. I definitely learned a lot more about CRISPR as well, because I knew nothing about CRISPR itself, just gene editing.
You get a book too, Emma.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes. Are there other questions? Anyone? Do the interns have any questions for Kevin? Do you mind answering questions, Kevin?
I had a question, June.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I'd like to ask the interns, does this change how you read the news and understand what's beyond the headlines and understand the social, emotional, and equity considerations that go into science and technology moving forward?
Definitely. For me, definitely. Even Kevin pointed some things out that I feel that I wouldn't have necessarily have found just by looking at media resources online, because the people really don't dive into the logistics and don't dive into these sorts of factors. Like, for example, even just by watching Human Nature, I felt that I had received a better insight on CRISPR and gene editing than I would have just by researching an article on this.
I agree with Sarah. You definitely do have to do your own research now, because in the news, they probably won't give you that much information.
Joseph and Sarah, what's your favorite, if it's not gene editing, what's your favorite area of science or favorite subject? Maybe it's not science.
Space science, like,
Oh,
For me, I'm really just fascinated by science in general. I don't think there's not one field in science that I haven't been interested in. It's just all very fascinating to me.
yeah. Joseph, did you enjoy Bezos's joyride up into space last week?
yeah, it did. It was very cool.
Yeah. Did you wish you'd been you'd had that fourth seat?
Oh, no.
No?
Nancy or John, do you have any questions?
I was just going to ask Sarah and Joseph, do you think this is a conversation you might continue with your students at school or your friends at school or students in your class, or maybe even with the biomed teacher that you had previously?
I would definitely have this discussion with my previous biomed teacher, as well as my friends, because I do have a lot of friends that they have family members that could benefit from CRISPR technology. So I feel like this would be a really good conversation to have with those people.
Yeah, me too. With my biomed teacher, I feel like she was able to like answer questions too. Like, if you have any questions about science, she would be open about it, what she'd think about it, and same for her family.
I think
But
it's
you think it should be a longer than just a couple days, maybe expand the class a little bit to cover it a little more often, or a little bit longer, I'm sorry.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Were the other
hope-
students in your class interested in when they talked about the CRISPR in your biomed classes? Did they seem as interested as you?
I feel like not many, but probably some of them did. Some that who are paying attention, got interested.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I think your biology teacher would love the feedback, because if they know that something that they've said really, whetted the appetite of some of their students, that'll hopefully make them think, okay, I should maybe expand that and take out some of the boring stuff that we did in the third week or something. It was my high school biology teacher back in England who just was so patient and humored the guys who were paying attention, who wanted to, stay after recess to stay behind at recess, I should say, to, ask about the equation on page 303 of the biochemistry textbook they just found in the library. And he was rolling his eyes, but he was patient and he humored us and got me completely absorbed and captivated into that subject. So I think they'd love to hear from you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I'm actually going to make a plug for our future live streams that we are doing the subsequent days. So tomorrow we have finance and documentary filmmaking, and actually our deep dive lead, if you want to give a shout out to your docklings, Barb. So finance tomorrow is so for those of you joining on our YouTube tomorrow, it's at 10 a.m. And then documentary film is at 1 p.m.
Do we still have animation at 9?
Yes, but we are not live streaming that one, Nancy. We're only doing
okay.
Zoom. So for live stream, yes. yes, animation is tomorrow on Zoom.
All I can say for the documentary filmmaking one is bring Kleenex, because these stories, they really went deep for these, and I've seen some of them 6-7 times over, and I'm still gutted. But some are whimsical, some are informative, some are funny, and some will just break your heart. So
yes, so we had 13 deep dives, and we are showcasing all of the Downey Unified showcases with the exception of animation. So the rest of the week, Wednesday, we have environmental activism at 10 a.m. We will have game production at noon, and we will have graphic design at 3:30. And then I also wanted to plug for our partners, and how I met Michael was the Harvard Medical School, the Personal Genetics Education Program, PG Ed. They are also hosting a deep dive. And so their mission really is to spread how to share more about genetic technology with community members, with young people. And so they are on Thursday at 9:30 a.m. So, and then we will have Build a Skateboard. That's at 12:30 on Thursday. And our last one is with augmented and virtual reality. It is at 2 p.m. So those were the deep dives that we have had with our interns this summer. And so there's more. This is just the first day, and this is our last one for today that we're live streaming. So I wanted to just see if anyone else wanted to share, but I wanted to give a plug for our other deep dives happening. And so let's see, anyone else want to share before we say goodbye?
Are these the ones that you're doing the deep dive on YouTube? Are those going to stay up on YouTube for a while so I can?
Forever.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I'll drop the URL into chat for you, Nancy.
Okay. Yeah. Because some of them I can't get to because of other meetings and stuff. So I want to be able to, the Harvard Medical one is another one I wanted to watch, but I've got another appointment at that time. So.
Yes. So we wanted to, they will be, this is why we wanted to live stream. Last year, we really just did it on Zoom and we had recordings, so it was complicated. We finally did put it up on Vimeo for us. However, it's nice to be able to share live and to have people participate as it's happening. And it's so special and amazing to have special guests like Kevin, who really just thank you for taking the time with us today and sharing your expertise with us. And part of the goal of this is really career exploration with our interns. So John's in the Department of College and Career Readiness, just to know that there's so many careers in this. So if you want to say a little bit about what kind of careers, right? That there's so many companies that you've mentioned that are doing this, and the genetic technology is so fast.
If that was for me, I mean, I think,
yes.
There's, there are, biotech is booming in general, but there are maybe a dozen CRISPR related or gene editing related companies, and there are more still being founded. So for any of the interns who are thinking about making a career in science, it used to be the case that that meant looking at a rather sort of stilted academic career, which is great, and some people love that and that have no looking back. But today, there's a whole industry where some, indeed a lot, of the truly groundbreaking work is being done. And you have the benefits of working in industry where potentially you can make a lot of money when these companies go public or get acquired or whatever. So you can have the best of both worlds. You can do really cool, challenging, game-changing research and make a living as well. So that's good. So this is, and it all started because somebody was, looking in a lagoon about why it was pink and why some microorganisms should live there. So that's the other big moral of this field, is that from some scientists in countries that we far away, studying basic research just for the joy of doing research, not because they wanted to start a company or cure cancer, just they wanted to understand these funny little microbes in a lagoon in Southeast Spain or whatever. We have this, it has led to this amazing genomic revolution. And who's to say that there isn't some other amazing technology just now getting launched by some teenager in a lab somewhere. So it's a really exciting time. But you can go off into space as well if you want, or build a skateboard. That's fine too.
Exactly. And we're just excited to be able to do it in a virtual environment. And so where are you joining us from, Kevin?
I'm based in DC.
DC. So this is one of the gifts of being virtual.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And
My pleasure.
And Michael and John, anyone else, any interns want to speak before we say goodbye?
I just want to express our gratitude from the district. And Joseph and Sarah, thank you so much for including us in your celebration of learning over the last 6 weeks. Emma, thank you for your work as a co-designer and serving in your second year in connection with this program in the summer. Kevin, I know you're probably very, very busy. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to join our celebration and conversation today. And Michael, as a lead of this deep dive, thank you so much for all of your work and your guidance and support of our students in their learning process in the last 6 weeks. We, of course, are very grateful to the Bea Group for all of the logistical support, the structure, and then the guidance of each of our deep dives in this internship, where students walk away with learning some things that will impact decisions and their pursuits in the coming years, probably more than a handful of coming years. They'll look back at this moment of 6 weeks where they explored into new areas that they were not aware of before, and that will impact their interests in pursuing whatever it is that they pursue with passion. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we would not be able to do any of this without the absolute outstanding support of the Board of Education and the Downey Unified School District. It's board members who have a vision for the future and a vision for learning in new ways that help us pursue things like this in the middle of a pandemic. I can tell you quite a number of school districts had internship programs which they canceled when they went into school dismissals. And our board, with a vision towards the future, was very supportive of the pivot to now connects us to, Kevin in Washington, D.C. In one of our previous presentations, we were connected, I believe, to Australia and around the world. Pretty soon, we're going to be able to say that the sun never sets on this program because we have people around the world participating in this internship program. And for that, we are very, very grateful. Thank you so much to each and every one of you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So I'm going to turn off the live stream. And if anyone wants